guys, it's people who drop litter. Always drop shit litter. Dragon soup, sour apple. This year I'm going to be 48, and there is a poignancy to that where my career and life is concerned, because it will mark 30 years of writing music using a computer sequencer. It's afforded me an understanding over these 30 years that computers like you to work in certain ways, and as a consequence you're encouraged to create music of a certain style, ilk, if you will. And a lot of my effort that I put into my computerized music is to decomputerize it. And I think it's because I sensed that we were getting to this point. This is from the Irish Examiner. The newest complete Schubert Symphony No. 8, which is his unfinished symphony that kind of people try and finish for him. This one is finished by artificial intelligence. My response to that tweet was, oh, fuck right off. Music is love. Science knows less about love than it does dream. If you know fuck all about the thing you're trying to synthesize or copy, it's going to be crap, isn't it? Imagine a McCartney bot writing Hey June. It's only one letter off, but it's still going to be utter shite. The point of view I have is that my children largely consume music that is utter shite. It's computerized music, and it is arguably music that could be produced by AI. They're consuming it on a few of the 6 million YouTube channels. And having an awareness of the size and scope and possibilities of YouTube does make me fear the future, not only of composition, but of music. I don't, wherever possible, give my children processed food because I know it's bad. I try to avoid them consuming sugar, a natural ingredient that has been denatured, because I know it'll give them cancer. And I fear that if all they are consuming is crap, processed, computerized, artificially intelligently produced music, they are not going to find the sustenance in music, what it can provide. There's so many ways that we can pull in a different direction. One, by creating tempo maps that don't make any sense but to us as humans. Two, for God's sake, use musicians. They are, I don't know. I would say musicians breastfeed our soul. What am I doing? This project, rejecting the computer, just for this one project as much as I can. And I'm doing an unboxed music project. And I wanted to kind of prove a point to me that electronic music isn't computerized music, because electronic music, good electronic music, does have a soul. I mean, do these have soul? I mean, well, how do you define soul? Well, for me, an equation of passion, creativity, and empathy would be a good starter. And the makers of these modular units that I met in this year's NAMM all had that in spades. I always ask people, well, imagine sex without those three things: passion, empathy, and creativity. It's a bit kind of, darling, could you come and help me release this sputum from my testicles? It's making me quite agitated. And to remain in this well of an analogy, okay, precious, time for a little treat. Even when humans imitate sex, porn, I mean, when have any of us looked at porn and gone, yeah, they've got that spot on? Why do these things have soul? Passion, creativity, empathy. Well, they have soul because we can feel it. This has soul. This has soul. This has soul. This has less soul than this. And these have more soul than these. They have greater vibes, greater vibrations, because they literally are, if they've been produced totally analog, they are simply an energy transfer of vibrations from when this guy was singing into a microphone to it being in your ears. These have less soul because they're just basically a bunch of ones and O's being read out to you very, very quickly. And these have even less soul. They are all methods of distribution. And the commonality between these different methods of distribution, even this method of distribution, is that they've all been treated with utter suspicion by the music industry. And this is where I see YouTube. I do not see it as a threat. I see it as a means of distribution. By hampering the distribution of good, human, soulful music to other humans to distribute on our behalf, we create an environment for automation. And in so doing, we create an environment where all our children are consuming on a music level is processed, is denatured. There is not a human on this planet who doesn't like homemade, I'm going to contradict myself, there's a contradiction in the post. There's not a human on this planet who doesn't prefer home-cooked food to processed food. And the reason for that is home-cooked food has love in it, processed food doesn't. There's actually one person I can think of who prefers processed food. Has it every night. I'm going to need to get a map to get out of this analogy. I'm writing an largely electronic album using this soulful equipment. And in order to kind of focus in on this opposite force to AI that I want to be a part of, I am going to create, is it a label? I'm going to house it in a website. And I'm so delighted to announce this, that I actually have managed to get an extraordinary URL that was available. And that URL is this one. Currently just a holding page. I've hijacked this episode for long enough. Time to go over to a mind greater than mine.
Hi Christian. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the next puzzle piece in my kind of post-techno performance idea that I have. You might remember I built this module quite a few episodes ago, and this is the Tech Ameoba, which is a cellular automation drum sequencer. Now, what on earth does that mean? So this is the module without anything patched in, and you can see that it has 8 of these trigger outputs with LEDs above them, and we have a tempo control on the top with a nice big LED to show us the current tempo. This can clock to other sources, but I'm not going to do that in this particular video. These little white knobs have, the top knob here will select the sort of mode that you're in, and then these 3 unusually colored knobs are kind of the main parameters that will change the behavior of those output triggers. So I'm going to be focusing mostly on the 2 beat modes. There are actually 5 different modes that you can have. As well as that, the triggers can also be made into gates, and you can see at a lower tempo here, those gates become really quite long. There's all sorts of uses beyond sequencing drums, which I think would be useful for here. I'm going to put it on some of the other modes that look like clock rotation and clock division, and then the very middle setting is cellular automation, which is really quite a bonkers trigger generative patch based on Conway's Game of Life. But for today, I'm going to set it to a sort of reasonable rate on the tempo, leave it on triggers instead of gates, and put it on the beat mode and the glitch beat mode. Let's get this thing patched up. I've got a few different modules already sort of patched up and ready to go. You can see my hex VCA on the right here is basically acting as a mixer. So the top one there, I'm going to hook up my 2 HP kick. And we've also got our 2 HP snare as well. So each of the patterns in beat mode are 64 steps long and divided into 2 32-step patterns, an A and a B pattern. If you want to get really adventurous, you can actually use a gate to decide which of those is going to be heard. So I've hooked up a couple of other different modules. I'm not going to tell you exactly what all the modules are, because some of these are a bit of a surprise for an up-and-coming video. I'm not going to use all 8 triggers on this. I'm going to use 6 of them, because I only have 6 inputs on my hex VCA. So I'm just going to move some of these cables out of the way. This top right here is the genus control, and this, when you're on beat mode, the middle white fader at the top will select between 12 different banks, and then that pink fader in the top right will select between a whole bunch of sub-banks of that. This purple fader here is a lot of fun. This is the density control. At 12 o'clock, this is going to be the kind of standard beat for that bank, and all the way to the left is going to be way more sparse than usual, and all the way to the right will add a whole bunch of extra sort of random little triggers and flams and rolls and things like that. Great for kind of glitchy, post-techno-y, glitchy electronica stuff. And again, you see I'll keep tweaking that top fader in the middle there to select a different beat bank, and the pink fader to choose a different genus. The other black control in the middle is the mutate control, and this will destructively edit the 64 steps each time you sort of tweak it to a different value. The value of these 4 different faders will change depending on the mode that you've selected with the top control. This will be a kind of a much more unpredictable and kind of frenetic drum part that I can then use CV to kind of control that randomness. But you can see with the glitch mode and the beat modes, you can get a real variety of different rhythmic patterns. Some of them really repeatable and fun, some of them absolutely bonkers. The glitch mode especially is full of some really wacky stuff. Much like the scan VCO that I looked at in the last time I was on this video, the Tech Ameoba has sort of sweet spots, and you can often find you'll change the mutate or the genus or the density and just happen upon a great beat. It's the sort of thing that really rewards you sort of hooking everything up, tweaking around with the sounds, and then just playing with it until you find something you like and just hit record. But as I was saying, the way I see this interacting really nicely with the Electron is the Electron stuff, I can be really prescriptive about how I want the beat to sound. I can lock loads of parameters to individual steps and be very exact. Whereas this injects a little bit of chaos and a little bit of unpredictability into the system. And again, I've now actually stuck it onto the clock divide mode, or into the clock rotation modes there. And you can get all sorts of fill-like patterns. And in this case, when you're on the clock rotating, the pink knob will choose which of the patterns you get, and the black knob will offset those patterns. I'm actually now, it looks as though I've gone on to the, I'm on the the cellular automation mode. So this is the sort of thing I'd really recommend you just look up the Wikipedia page for Conway's Game of Life. It's like a cellular, single cell organism physical model sort of thing. It's used a lot in electronic music. I know that Brian Crabtree and Kelly Kane, who designed the Monome, they had a max patch for the Monome that was kind of based around the similar sort of physics. It's a lot of fun. But essentially, you're choosing a shape which will generate different ongoing patterns. And again, moving one knob will change the shape, and one knob will change the position of that shape on the grid, and so on. It's really quite an involved thing, but it can give you some repeatable but kind of random sounding steps. And then the fun thing with this is setting up a beat and then just tweaking around with all the different sounds that you've got. It's a great kind of brain for driving some of the more chaotic beats. You get into sort of the breakbeat territory, especially with that density control all the way to the top. I would say the density control on this thing is definitely the most intuitive thing to control, and especially when I'm using this clocked to my analog rhythm or analog 4, that will be the control that I'm most likely to sort of tweak live. You can't see from my hand here, but I'm selecting between the different patches and patterns using that pink knob. And then when you find one you like, messing around with that density knob again is just a really fun kind of performance control. And you can actually see to the right of the triggers, you've got various CV inputs on this. My eventual plan is to basically map some of these controls onto macros that I can control with the analog rhythm. Whilst I'm tweaking around with some of these other effects like the scanned VCO and some of the other modules that are being driven by this. It's worth mentioning that another great use for this would be to lower the tempo, set it to gate and put it on the cellular automation mode, because you could get some really interesting results out of that as well. Some of the real chaos stuff that you can hear going on in the background now is in another module that I'm going to be covering in an upcoming video. But I think the key to making an interesting performance tool for this is going to be having the Amoeba here be a source of interesting and slightly random rhythmic pulses and rhythmic gates, and then use some other CV sources for automating things like volts per octave, delay times, and other sort of timbral parameters. And then eventually having a macro control over all of those. But anyway, for now, this is my new chaotic jigsaw piece for the live kind of post-techno performance patch that I'm going to come up with. So I'll leave you here, and back to you, Christian.
Thank you, Sandy. Thanks, as always, for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Modular Mondays is going to be really at the heart of my personal fight to push in the opposite direction of soulless music. That's a good way of describing it. It is real music. You know, as John Cage said, you know, music is just organised noises. He didn't mean it literally, though, although he had a damn good go. It should be organised well. Okay, so if you haven't subscribed yet, that'd be great. If you want to be notified the next time we put a video up, hit that bell. And one of those would be great if you've liked what I've said here. Right, filthy litterbugs. See you next time.